So this is our first lesson of our first unit. So our first unit is called Interactions and Ecosystems. And our first topic is called Relationships Exist Between Living Things and Their Environments. So today we'll be going over a lot of the key terms that you are required to know and be able to define. So first, ecosystems and basic needs. What is an ecosystem? So an ecosystem is defined as any place on Earth where the living things interact with other living things as well as the non-living things. All right, so interactions between living things and between living and non-living things. Two other terms here that you're required to know are biotic factors and abiotic factors. So bio, anytime you see the word bio, that usually means living. So biotic factors means living things. So these are any living things like plants, animals, fungi, bacteria. These are just a couple examples here. And then abiotic factors are any of the non-living things. So examples of non-living things like water, the rocks, the air. You can get even more specific and say oxygen and nitrogen. You can talk about minerals as being non-living things and so on. Temperature is another non-living thing. So on. Soil would also be another non-living thing. All right, so make sure you do know the difference between biotic factors and abiotic factors and be able to give examples of each. All right, next is ecology. So when we talk about ecology, this is the study of the relationship between living organisms and their environment. And a scientist that is an ecologist would be someone who studies those relationships. So those relationships between living organisms and their environment, such as those abiotic factors. All right, so just start thinking, start brainstorming what are some abiotic and biotic factors, maybe in your schoolyard or in your backyard. So just start thinking, kind of brainstorming what some of those things might be. So within an ecosystem, there are levels. And so we're going to talk about those levels now. So we would start with a single organism, and a single organism would belong to a species. So a species is defined as living things of the same kind, and they have to be able to reproduce. And those offspring that are reproduced, they have to be fertile offspring. All right, meaning they can further reproduce. And that is how we define species. All right, so humans all belong to the same species. If we were talking about, for example, a specific type of cat, like a lynx, that would be a species. A different kind of cat could be a cougar. Those would belong in a separate type of species. Next is population. So a population is when a number of individuals from the same species live together in the same area. That now becomes a population. All right, so we go from an organism belonging to a species, and now it becomes a population when we have a group of them together. After that, we get to a community. A community is going to be all the populations of different species that live and interact in the same place. So a community could be an area that has trees, different species of trees, different species of plants, along with the different species of animals in that same area as well. Next, we get to an ecosystem, and this now is the area where all the living and non-living things within a community interact. All right, so in an ecosystem now, we're looking at the interactions between the living and the non-living things, and that's what makes up an ecosystem. All right, so here we just have a diagram showing the levels of organization. So starting at the bottom, we have the individual or the organism that belongs to a species. Then we have the population that consists of the same species. Next, we have the community. So here we can see different species interacting together. So that becomes a community. And then we have the ecosystem. The ecosystem now brings in the living and the non-living things interacting together. So in this case, we can see some rocks, we can see the sand, we see the water. Those were all the abiotic or non-living things.
Great. So just to clarify, a community.
So next, we're just going to talk about the needs of living things. So for grade 7, we talk about these needs of living things. The first one is water. 3/4 of Earth's surface is covered with water, and 2/3 of our body is made up of water. We need food or some sort of energy. So this food, it provides nutrients such as carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, and minerals. It's the food that gives us energy, the energy to survive, to do things like breathing, moving, growing, digesting, repairing, and maintaining the health of our cells. Another need of living things is being able to exchange gases. So for example, animals, we take in oxygen, we breathe it in, and then we are exhaling carbon dioxide. Plants, on the other hand, they take in the carbon dioxide and they release oxygen. We also need suitable living conditions. So for example, a habitat. This is a location where an organism lives. Keep in mind, life can exist in even harsh, extreme conditions, such as hot springs and the Antarctic. But from what we see is that most living things, they live best in moderate range of temperatures. So those are the needs of living things. I'm going to pause it here. We're going to watch this quick video on exploring different levels of biological organization.
In this opening episode, we are going to explore the different levels of biological organization. In order to study these different levels of biological organization, we will use an approach termed reductionism to reduce complex systems to simpler components that are more manageable to study. This journey begins in outer space. The planet Earth is considered a biosphere of life. The term biosphere means all life on Earth and all places where life exists, including most regions of land, bodies of water, the atmosphere to an altitude of several kilometers, and even sediments far below the ocean floor. In the next part of this journey, we will look at ecosystems. What comes to mind with the term ecosystem? Is it just plants or animals? Well, this term encompasses much more than that. Ecosystems consist of all living and non-living things in a particular area. An example of an ecosystem is the deciduous forests of North America. All of the various organisms inhabiting a particular ecosystem are termed a biological community. The biological community in the deciduous forest ecosystem includes many types of trees and other plants, animals, various mushrooms, and other fungi. Each ecosystem is filled with a unique biological community. Within a community, we can observe the population. A population consists of all the individuals of a species living within the bounds of a specified region. What example of a population can we see in the Indiana forest? One example is a population of white-tailed deer. Our next level of zooming moves to the category of organisms. Organisms are individual living things. Each white-tailed deer in our previous example is an individual organism. The structure of life continues to unfold as we reach the next level of organization, which are organs and organ systems.
To study different parts of an ecosystem and better understand the interactions between organisms and the environment, scientists organize ecosystems into different levels. The simplest level in an ecosystem is a single organism. In an African grassland, A single wildebeest is an example of an individual organism. Of course, there's more than just one wildebeest in an African grassland. All of the organisms of the same kind within an ecosystem are called a population. All of the wildebeests in the African grassland make up a population. Organisms within a population interact with one another and reproduce. They have young to ensure their kind continues to live in the ecosystem. Within the African grassland ecosystem, there are populations of many other organisms too. There's populations of acacia trees, termites, zebras, lions, and many others. All of the populations in an ecosystem make up a community. The community and the interactions with the non-living components of their surroundings make up the ecosystem. The interactions between the gazelles, zebras, lions, and other organisms with the air, soil, water, and other non-living things make up the African grassland ecosystem.